Yeah, great.
All right. Well, good evening and hello and welcome, everyone. I wish I didn't have to use the microphone, but because we are on Zoom as well, I need to so that everyone can hear. But I'd much rather be up front and kind of sort of circulating. So just bear with me. I just want to start by saying thank you. Thank you for being here. I know that the invitation for this evening came out late on Friday. I want to start by kind of just talking a little bit about the purpose before I go into some introductions. This really is an opportunity for us to come together in open dialogue and to, really have some sort of authentic and real conversations. I know many of you may be here in this room and some online. We have, several, I think at least 22 at this time online as well. Just in my recent emails and conversations, with many of you had indicated you were going to be there at the board meeting on Thursday, and you've expressed, some of your thoughts and input in such an articulate and thoughtful and valuable manner. And I think the problem with board meetings is that not that there's a problem with them. I've got our trustees sitting here, but, it really doesn't allow for that open dialogue. And so we really wanted to have this opportunity tonight with all of you for us to present some information and then really have at the end that opportunity for questions and conversation. So that's really, the intent. This is really about our being able to come together in partnership and really be able to give, information on some of the questions that continue to come forward and really hear from all of you as to, what remains as those, sort of lingering concerns. So really, today we have three key topics. It's about elementary school placement. We're going to talk a little bit about that, TK eligibility, and then UPK, so universal pre-kindergarten offerings as well. And I know I've got Matthew, Director Binder over here to my left, who's going to help me with slides. And so if we could transition over to the next slide. Thank you, Matthew. So really, there's our welcome and purpose. I wanted to start by just doing some introductions. I'm your superintendent, Linda Adamson, and you're going to be hearing a lot from me during the presentation, which we have intentionally kept short, so we have that opportunity to answer questions towards the end. But before we do that, I really would like to take a moment to just introduce some of our district office staff who are here with us this evening, who are going to assist in answering some of the questions. And also we have several of our trustees who are here tonight. So I'd like to start by recognizing our President Dr. Hazen, who is joining us. So thank you, President Hazen. We have Trustee and Clerk McNary. Thank you for being here tonight, Trustee McNary. We have Trustee Wax. Thank you for being here tonight, Trustee Wax. And we have Trustee Shamas. I don't know why she's sitting at the back of the room, but there's space up here. You need to come forward. Thank you for being here tonight. And then several members of our district staff as well. So someone who you'll be hearing from as well and someone answering the questions will be Chief Rogerman, our Chief of Human Resources this evening. Thank you for being here. We have our Executive Director of Student Services, Executive Director Cook Anthony. Thank you for being here this evening, Yolanda. Already referenced is our Director of Educational Technology, Mr. Matthew Binder. Thank you for being here. And let's see, we also have, I think, is Dr. Hagquist online? He is coming back from driving his daughter back from college. And so he was going to make it towards the end of the day, but I think wasn't going to make it in person. So we'll probably be online at some point, but I just wanted to acknowledge that as well. Also with us this evening, we have Principal Emily Brownfield from our proud principal of Robert Town. Thank you for being here this evening, Emily. And Principal Abby Aubrey is also here on her way. She was finishing up a PTA meeting, so she'll be here as soon as she's finished there. I know that we have several staff as well here. I see some of our TK and kindergarten teachers from Robert Down, other staff members as well. We also have someone who I'll introduce later is actually two teachers from our current state preschool program who we'll be talking a little bit about as well. So I'll introduce them officially when we get to that. All right, so I'm going to go, really just straight into, just talking about a little of what I want to present at the beginning. And really when, we were preparing for tonight, I really thought we would go ahead and just sort of narrow it down to sort of three topics. But before I do that, I'm going to turn it over to President Hazen to just say a few words. So thank you, Elliot.
I don't have my computer to read from, so I might stumble a bit, but I just want to make clear again that this is again, the desire is a safe space. Like whatever your views are, you're putting out there, please know you're going to be heard. And we really want to encourage everyone online and in person to treat each other with the kindness and respect that, again, our district is known for doing. So I also want to say, I know how much, I mean, we have now 3 parents and 1 grandparent from the board here of kids in the district. So we all have skin in the game, so to speak. This is not something we're making a decision without, a lot of care and thought. So please do know that as well, that we're here to listen. We want to learn, but we are all facing constraints that we're trying to do our best on a day-to-day for all of our learners. So thank you all for coming.
Okay, Dr. Hackworth is online. We don't want to say welcome to him. Yes, a long day of driving, I know. All right, so I think the first is really just we wanted to add some clarification related to elementary school placement, some information regarding offerings that we're going to be presenting to you this evening in line with the UPK, the Universal Pre-K rollout, and then really, 2 program options that we'll be presenting. If we could advance the slide, that would be great. Thank you. All right, so I think the first, I really wanted to start with something that came to our attention towards the end of last week. And I was notified by, some parents when they were finishing the online registration process that there is a message that popped up on the screen that really talked about school and class placement. And there was language in there that even as I read it, really made it sound as if, once the school year had begun, that a student could be moved from their school of residence or the school that they were currently enrolled in as a result of maybe, growing enrollment, at that particular school or that particular grade level. I just want to say we appreciate being informed of that. We have, removed that language. Even as we were looking into that, I think that's language that has been there for many years. But I think, just given, so many of the topics that we've been having, there was, a little bit more scrutiny, on that. And so people reading that, and as I was reading that, acknowledged that there's absolutely not accurate and in line with, our current policy. So I really just wanted to take the opportunity to address that with everyone here this evening, that really, once the school year has begun and when students are enrolled, that is their school of enrollment, right? And we would not be, moving students for any other reason other than there was a conversation and something that there was a specific situation, and maybe that was even a request from families, but we would not be making that decision. When students have started, we know that's best for students, right? That they are in a family, that in an environment where they feel safe. So that would not be the case. So I think just wanting to clarify that. Definitely, yes, if a grade level is full and the school year has begun and we have, families coming into the area who are new to the school and there is not space at one school, but there is space at the second elementary school, absolutely, right? We would go ahead and then enroll the students at that other school, even if it was then a school other than their, official school of residence. I know, our language is very clear in our board policy on that would apply to really, it's for 1 year. And really the hope being that if families still want that, the following year, they would have that option to then return, to their assigned school of residence. But again, that really comes down to where we have space. I'll talk about it a little bit later, but really, as we are looking, at availability, if we have space at the other school before our adding another classroom, hiring another teacher and taking on that additional, fiscal expense, it really just makes fiscal sense to then utilize the spaces that we have available. Once we're full at both school sites, well, that's a different situation, right? Then we would go ahead and then, hire and add that additional classroom. So again, we apologize for any confusion, with that, but that, language has definitely been corrected. All right, if we could advance to the next slide. All right, and this, I just want to take a few, moments to just talk about, placement and enrollment at schools of residence. We have said this over and over, it's embedded and written in our board policy that, our first priority is always to accommodate students at their school, their assigned school of residence, which of course, is assigned according to our boundary limits. And so that is our priority. I think I've spoken to this already. If a school reaches capacity, then absolutely we would then, number one, commit to, creative alternatives that can sometimes include and involve the creation of combination classes, because that would be our first priority before moving students to another school to really try to maintain them and keep them, at their school of residence. If reassignment is necessary, I've said this already, it's for 1 school year only. And then really, even in cases where a student were to move mid-year, out of their boundary, and that happens sometimes, right? If parents move out, if they're renting or they purchase another house, our priority would be to maintain and keep that child at that school that they're currently enrolled until the following year, right? So again, just all of those components, those are things that we really look into because we know that's always what's best for students. And, once they've made their friends and, it's where they find themselves, safe and secure, that's definitely always our priority. All right, thank you. All right, let's see, class size goals and, responsible staffing. So again, I've said this already, our commitment is always to maintaining small class sizes. We have very clear numbers that are really, stated and detailed out in the contracts that we have with our Teachers Association. Example for TK, currently our enrollment and our goal for that is 24, right, is really our limit. Kindergarten, our goal is always 25, maximum would be 27. And there are specific numbers, that really are, assigned to every school, to every grade level. To remain fiscally responsible, yes, we look at very closely. We manage, staffing carefully. Every time we have to open another class and add another teacher, that is, significant expense. And so, we're constantly looking at where those numbers are, where they fall at both of our elementary schools before making, any decisions. And it really is always, and that is in bold, we have to consider as a district for us to be able to continue offering the high quality program that we do as a district, what is, fiscally sustainable. I think, what everyone doesn't always take into consideration is that, even if we make that decision 1 year, we're now, taking on that responsibility year after year, right, once we've added another teacher. So again, we have to look at all of those options and alternatives before, we make that decision. But all of that in keeping with what our, current class sizes are, which really, when compared to other districts, remains, really relatively small. But again, that remains our priority. That question I put there as the next bullet, is this practice new or unique to, PGUSD? And the answer to that is no. I think that is a practice we have followed for many years. That board policy has been in place for many years. And really, it's a practice that's followed and really put into place by, every other district. I come from, a district in, Southern California, and those were really practices. We had 21 elementary schools, so we were constantly having to look at, schools to see where, space was. And there were times when, schools were at capacity that we were, having to enroll students at schools that were really outside, and in a district that's much larger, you really are looking at, geographically, wider areas. But so again, it's not unique to our district, and it's definitely not something that we're suddenly doing new this year. And then maybe just to reference back, I think many of you, were probably very much involved in and aware as we went through, the process of developing our budget. We, have been very open and transparent that we are facing a significant deficit spending. And so really, when we looked at our budget over starting between the time period of October through February, that was really about looking to seeing where we could reduce spending. And yes, we were looking at program offerings. We were looking at enrollment of our various grade levels at all of our grade spans to really just determine, where we could, make some reductions. That was very much a collaborative process. We worked hard, with our community. We gathered input with our staff to really identify, and bring about a significant reduction. And we did. And I think what's important there is that then as we are then looking at our class sizes currently and making decisions, which I'll get to shortly, about, adding, to our TK classes, that we really have to consider all of that. If there are decisions that require an additional teacher or additional staffing, that is now going to add to the deficit that we continue to see for next year. We were able to reduce it significantly, and that will be presented as part of our budget on Thursday night. But we're still facing a deficit, and we're still facing deficit, for the next, projected 2 to 3 years. So again, we as a district have to really look at that carefully. And I know, as you're hearing, we're talking about students, but we're talking about money, those two don't go hand in hand, right? I think, you talk about from a teacher's, perspective and a teacher's heart. And I get that. I'm a former teacher. I'm looking at those decisions. It's hard. right? But the bottom line is when you're looking at everything bigger picture as an entire district, we've got to think about every decision that's made, every additional cost that's added, and what the impact is on that, district wide, right? And if decisions we're making is going to continue to grow that deficit year after year, reduce our reserves, that we're at a point where we can't continue to keep autonomy and control over our budget, those are decisions that are significant. Those are decisions that really, have accountability measures where, we could lose, right, that autonomy and that control as a basic aid district. I just share that with everyone, just kind of to give a little bit more of an understanding and perspective, right? Okay, so I think that's as far as class size goals and responsibilities. All right, and I think when we're talking about, placement at schools, I understand, and I've heard from so many, of you in the room, of our families who've come to speak to board meetings, who've emailed us, who I've had conversations personal with, that really, I get that you have, many of you may have gone to a school yourself, you had your parents attend, and now you've got your younger students who are ready to come. And I think that's why we do. We work on continuing to, work with our families to keep that a priority, to have students enroll at their school of residence. But, I do remind everyone we've got two incredible schools, and when there is that need to make a change to a school other than the resident school, I think really I want everyone to have that faith and trust in the fact that no matter what school our elementary students end up with, they are going to have and receive an incredible education. It's aligned, it's the same program offerings, the same curriculum, and that's really what we are working hard to continue to, do even better with in alignment. And right now we have two incredible principals, and Principal Arbery joined us to, really are working closer than ever, on ensuring that there is that alignment between the two schools. So I feel so confident in that. But I really just remind everyone that, those programs are, both incredibly exceptional and strong, right, within their own rights. Both offer warm, inclusive school cultures, dedicated professionals, and really, it's all intended to live out our core values, right, of belonging, safety, and prosperity. In the rare case that a student is placed at a school other, than their school of residence, as I've said already, it would be for 1 year, and really they would receive that equally enriching and supportive experience. And, I think I mentioned this already, our schools collaborate closely to really ensure program alignment and continuity across both campuses. And I think the next one really just speaks to the fact that what we have seen year after year, and, they have been each year, we have had to make decisions where we've had to, move especially once the year has begun and we have families moving into the area and there's not space, right, that we're assigning them to another school, to the alternate school. And what we have found though, is those families tend to, once they've, begun a year and they've been there and they've developed those connections and relationships, that they choose to want to stay, even when there is that option the following year, if they could return to their school of residence. And I think what that speaks to is the fact that, there's our staff has a commitment to building strong relationships and connections with the students that they serve and with the families that they serve. And so, when you are faced with the option to return, right, and families are saying, no ways, right, they want to stay where they are, their children have developed friendships, and that says everything, right, in my mind. Our schools are welcoming, supportive, and unified in their commitment to every student's success. And I added that final point because I think whether they're archers or falcons, right, they all come together in middle school and high school and all become breakers. And, I think that's the reminder, that speaks to, just our culture of we and that reminder of, what we offer. All right, so that really, kind of addresses just some of the information regarding surrounding school placement, even how, class size and some of the, how enrollment works. So the next part I really want to speak to a little bit about is the whole, I want to give a little bit of information that's really related to the rollout of universal pre-kindergarten. And this is actually a slide that was presented when we, talked about this at our February meeting. Dr. Hagquist, presented a little bit of information about the history, where we've come from. And I just really thought this was important to highlight just really the last, 3 years. Taking us back to, Assembly Bill 130 in 2021, really was what, started out the rollout and the expansion of transitional kindergarten to make it universally available to all four-year-olds by 25-26. Students who turn 5 within the below windows, would have access to TK. That was the whole intent, right, of that legislation. I think what's important to point out is that we as a district all the way through, we have followed those phase-in, expansion, eligibility ages, all the way through till, currently our cutoff for kindergarten for TK is that students need to be 4 by June 2nd. What we're facing right now, right, is the following year, and that's the final year of phasing in, is the 25-26 year that any child who has their 4th birthday by September 1st, right, according to the legislation, would be eligible for TK. I think the challenge, and we've really tried to address this in our communications, but honestly, I mean, the challenge that we face with that is as a basic aid district, there is no additional funding that we receive, for the expansion of TK. And I think the hard part with that really is that, what we've got to consider is, all of our local control funded, districts. So those are all of our other districts around on the county of Monterey. It's really us and Carmel Unified School District who are considered basic aid. So when you're reading that legislation, it's very clear, and we have really delved into and gotten a lot of, counsel and guidance and advice on how that language is interpreted. But really, when you read it, it talks about, yes, this requirement for, local educational agencies, so school districts, to roll, this expanded age eligibility window into the 25-26 year. But it also is very clear that it's contingent on funding, right? It has that very clear language that's attached to it. And I think really what, we've been in our guidance and our conversations is really, for the state to mandate a program, really they can only mandate something that really comes, with that additional funding. And I think, when you look at that, there is an assembly bill currently. It's 1391 that was, initiated by Congress member Addis. That really is in the works and sort of, possibly, could, be passed. It won't be passed from what we're being told before, the beginning of next school year. But that really is intended to provide funding specifically for basic aid districts. That whole, legislation was started, that bill was started and began, with that intent. So again, I think I only share that with all of you for that very reason that, yes, we are facing, number one, I go back to a deficit for next year. For us to then take on, this additional expansion of our TK program at this time really would then require the hiring of additional staffing, which is only going to add to and contribute to our growing deficit for next year. And so that's the challenge. That's the decision, that we've had to make and look at. And it's not an easy one. I refer to our cabinet as we're meeting to what's, called as a wicked problem, right? And that really just kind of it's sort of complex problems that we look at, that really there's a combination of elements and components that we have to consider, right? At the heart of it, right, when you look at UPK, the intention is, yes, it's about expanding and making, that program available and accessible to all of our 3- and 4-year-olds, and that expands, next year to our summer birthday, kiddos. But at the same time, we come back to, as a district, for us to really be fiscally, sustainable, to have a budget that, is going to be balanced in future years. We have to consider, what that is going to, how we can afford that, right? So again, those are the challenges before us. So with that, I really want to give sort of a little bit of an outline on, just sort of the overview of universal pre-K. It really, when you look at the language and you look at the intention of this rollout, it's all about providing a mixed delivery approach. And so just some of those, I'll go briefly through some of those bullets, but, really it's about expanding early learning access through a combination, right? A mixed delivery system that could include anything from TK, pre-K, CSPP, that's California State Preschool Program, either preschool partnerships, or with the intention of offering flexible early learning pathways. And really, I love that umbrella because it really kind of identifies everything that's encompassed into, what UPK is. And I was, so encouraged. Dr. Hagquist and I met recently and have been meeting, with Monterey County of Office of Education with their, UPK team. And really they had, wanted to partner with us to kind of share some of the creative and mixed, delivery options that other districts they're working with and providing support to have been implementing. And as a result of working with them and talking about, what our offerings are, we were really able to come up with a creative option that really serves to, offer and meet the needs of our summer birthday students, but really all of our, students eligible for TK and, preschool, right? So really looking at it as this whole overarching umbrella, of universal pre-K program offerings. The second bullet, it's about increasing access and choice, right? While maintaining quality, supporting flexible pathways, staffing flexibility, local partnerships, and efficient use of facilities. Because look, whether you're a basic aid district or a local control funded, formula district, it all comes down to, yes, we have this amount of money, and how are we utilizing it, right, to meet the needs of all of our students. So it is about, yes, efficient use of facilities and responsible, expenditure, right, of the funds we have available to us. So really, like I said, in partnership with MCOE, we really have come to what we consider as a fiscally responsible model that really, expands that access, providing, through the provision of high quality early learning experiences to promote, ultimately to promote kindergarten readiness, right? So I think that's an important piece. Go to the next slide. So I think keeping in mind, number one, the needs of our families, and that's very much what we have heard, from our families, whether it's, through emails that we've been receiving, whether it's, family members who've come and stood to talk at a board meeting, or just, personal conversations that, we've had. What we continue to hear is really, there were sort of a variety of maybe sort of three, major concerns that parents have expressed. And I think the one being that, number one, that, they are really wanting that additional year, right, of kindergarten preparation, for their students. So worried about not being able to offer a program that would ultimately help prepare them, for kindergarten. I think the second part is that, yes, even though we were saying we have, some other preschool offerings that's not comparable, was one concern. And then the other was that there was costs associated, for many of them. I think the other was really, our not offering any sort of, comparable program. Many had indicated that, they knowing the fact they were anticipating coming here to one of our traditional TK programs, the private preschools that they may be enrolled in, have filled up. And then, of course, just the length of the day, there were concerns there, and even having access to, childcare and things of that nature. So really taking all of this into account, we've really, used that to, really identify and put together, an offering that we think, really meets all of those needs in partnership with MCOE, and of course, in alignment with the rollout of, UPK for next year. So really what we are proposing, and what I'm going to speak to a little bit about and give some information to you this evening, is it's a blended UPK learning model that, number one, will expand access to our 3- and 4-year-olds, providing high quality, early learning experiences, but most importantly, doesn't, incur additional costs, right? It's something, and it's actually about our taking advantage of a program that already exists, where we have the incredible staffing available to be able to expand that program and really look at it in terms of this whole idea of that mixed, delivery and blended model. So that's a little bit of what we'll be talking about. And again, I think an important piece here is that this is directly from, our partnership and collaboration with MCOE, with the UPK team, and really aligns to what they're seeing and what they've helped implement in so many of the districts that they're working with. So I think that's important. Who would be eligible, for this program? It really is, we're offering, 2 no-cost options, which would be designed to meet the needs of students who turn 4 between that time period, so between June 3rd and September 1st, who we, refer to as students with their summer birthdays. So really, I'm going to talk a little bit about, the first option, and this is our blended UPK model. So essentially what we would be doing is we'd be taking a current program that we have, which is our state preschool program, and really adapting that and blending it to incorporate more of a UPK program, essentially pre-kindergarten. It would be aligned with TK program, elements. It's serving our 3- and 4-year-olds, but I want to be clear, it's not a TK program. They are very, very specific, and I know that's something that, as I've had conversations with our TK and kindergarten teachers, they wanted to be very clear on making sure that we're highlighting, and really identifying and being distinct about what those differences are. So I think, it really would be sort of a blended sort of pre-kindergarten, program. But the beauty about this is it really would be serving 3- and 4-year-olds, and really would allow for still our, state preschool program, which is not to capacity by any means, has, so much space, but we have this incredible group of teachers who I'll talk about in a moment, who would be able to serve the needs. Currently, that program is situated at our David Avenue School. So the goal would be, and actually this has been, part of our, long-term, vision and planning would be to move that program in the next 2 years, to Forest Grove Elementary. We would really go ahead where we have the space and facilities, and the idea being to really develop this early childhood educational development center. With this program that we're looking at, rolling out for next year, this would just sort of, fast track things and really would allow us to move that program during the summer for, the start of the new school year. So moving it to Forest Grove Elementary, why is that important? The distinction there is really the fact that it's now, that UPK program on an elementary campus, which really gives more of that exposure to all of the students, to, elementary peers. There'd be a little bit of that natural, sort of interaction with, other TK students in the traditional TK class. But in addition to that, there are, benefits and resources that, students and the teachers would be able to take advantage of, right, that they would have at an elementary school site. And we really would be looking at a full day schedule. I know that was something we heard from so many families. They're looking for more of that sort of 5-hour, program. So that would be an ability for us to sort of adapt, the program offerings within that blended classroom. Access to enrichment classes would be something that students would have, and before and after school program, and then free meal offerings as well, which again are offerings that would not be available in how the program is structured currently. And then, I think that opportunity for collaboration, engagement with the TK staff and students, really, that allows for more of that richer, blend. I, had a chance to actually meet with the teachers of both of that, of the state preschool program who would be really leading and guiding this program. We have Erin Hamadi and Kine Samuels, who are with us this evening. Number one, I just want to say they are so excited about this opportunity. They are so excited about their program, really, moving on to elementary, particularly, Forest Grove. I think they both have, connections there. But really, that ability then and when I spoke with the Forest Grove staff too, they talked about that ability to have now this more professional learning collaboration, between, amongst all of the teachers. And really just the addition of that additional resource, right, that, all coming together in support of all of the students that they're serving. So I think that's significant. But again, it just, it enriches the program, and allows for, just so many more resources that would be available. Let's see, I talk about curriculum alignment with TK. One of the things we've talked about when I met with our TK teachers, last week, we recently did an English language arts adoption, which really only, encompassed kindergarten through 5th grade. And, what I know from our TK teachers is that there is a desire to really be able to adopt, and have an actual curriculum and a program. So really, I see this as an opportunity for us to really, bring, teachers from the UPK program and our TK teachers to really look and pilot some options for next year and really come to an agreement on, something that really, we could have, some alignment across both programs. I know that there's, a program currently, Frog Street, that is used, in Kine and Erin's program currently, that really kind of has, very specific levels that meets the needs of the various age groups that are served. But there are so many other programs out there, and this would give us an opportunity to pilot and consider them. And no additional cost, right? We have 2 exceptional qualified early childhood education teachers and 2 instructional aides who are part and lead that program, who would continue to do so. That really allows for, a really small adult to student ratio. And so again, I think we're taking advantage of a program that is already there, and really, this is our chance to really expand it to really meet the needs, of all of our students. So just really exciting. Right. I think on the next slide, I talk a little bit about option 2. And I want to be clear, I think this is really about if we were to reach capacity in our, UPK classroom. We have another option to offer, which would be a UPK program through our adult school parent education program, which is overseen and run by our principal of our adult school, which is Principal Barbara Martinez. And so we would, she would be very heavily involved in that, and we would stay close to kind of look at what our numbers are. Did I introduce you at the beginning? Principal Martinez? No, Principal Martinez, principal of our adult education. It just occurred to me as I looked at you, I'm like, no, I think a round of applause. So sorry. All right, so that would be really the second option. I think really what this means is we look at what the goals, of this program are and what this means. Just to summarize, it's again aligns with what the state's UPK vision is, and allowing, I know the intent of that is really to allow districts to really address local needs, right, of the students and the families that we're serving. The overall arching idea would be to support, kindergarten readiness, so students who are in the UPK class, would be that with that whole goal of making sure that they are prepared, they have that preparation year to be ready for kindergarten when the following year rolls around. Offering curriculum and enrichment consistent with traditional TK. Again, I'm not saying it's a TK program, being very clear, but again, I think the fact that we're moving this to the kindergarten campus gives more of that access, for very similar, offerings. Promote belonging, safety, and prosperity, right, in alignment with our core values. And encourage, definitely encouragement of family engagement and a strong school connection, from the beginning, I think is really important. And really reflects the true intent of UPK, offering these blended learning models. It's interesting because, I think as I've had, conversations with, other colleagues, just this morning, talking to, someone from Carmel Unified School District, where they really have, sort of a variety of different options, but they were saying how, this year when they were offering the UPK, similar program, what they've been seeing is that more of their families, actually with students who are eligible for TK, were in fact selecting the UPK model, right? So their numbers were, sort of narrowing out and sort of coming out at least one of their elementary schools. But again, I mean, it's, it really is, it's I think what this does is it's about, meeting the needs of families, right? And we may have some families who, as they're looking at those offerings, may actually select, sort of more of a sort of that blended option, which, again, as a UPK program, it's not necessarily, maybe there's a little bit more of that structure, the developmentally, appropriate learning, that's involved. But again, I think all of these programs would be geared towards the age, and the level and the learning abilities, of the students. So that's really where we are. Really, as far as learning more, what we would want to do with our families who, this would really, impact, and, for those, families who are out, who have students who have those summer birthdays, we would want to definitely reach out to, hold individual meetings, to really help, maybe, for them to learn a little bit more about, what those programs will offer. We definitely will be holding family information nights, and MCOE has indicated their desire to want to partner with us and be present for those, to really kind of give more of the sort of global perspective, and allow us to really learn from, what they've seen and what they're helping implement in other districts. I think what that does too as well, that it just allows for more of that, learning opportunity. We definitely would be, wanting for our teachers of the program to really look at what other programs are offering, to learn, maybe go visit and observe, ourselves included, right? Myself included, for goodness sake. So I think it's an opportunity for, lots of additional learning. And then really Principal Arbrun and Principal Martinez, Principal Arbrun as the principal of the, Forest Grove, and who'd be, really sort of helping oversee the program and growing it. And then Principal Martinez with the expertise that she brings, from having overseen the state preschool program, all along. We will, have them involved as well in just helping our families learn more and making them available as to what those choices are. So really, that's the presentation. I would like to open it up at this time, to dialogue, right? And, questions that maybe come up, and maybe any additional input, that any of you have. This is definitely where I'm going to be leaning on, some of my colleagues to, really be able to speak to some of the areas that are in their areas of expertise. But we really want to hear from all of you now, and we welcome your questions and input. I'm going to get some water while everyone thinks. All right, I think what we want to do is, because of everyone online.
Everybody works online.
So that would be awesome. Thank you.
Other duties as.
You don't have to get up to speed.
We have a question here, and then I see you just do that. Oh, okay. Two.
Thank you, ma'am, and thank you to your team here. Obviously, giving this in-depth explanation. My name is Nolan Maynard. I'm a father of 3 children in Pacific Grove. And going to the beginning of your presentation, could you provide some clarification on how the legal interpretation was concluded that as a basic aid district, Pacific Road would be able to more or less evade or be exempt from those requirements to provide universal preschool or TK?
Absolutely. I'm happy, to clarify and maybe go into that a little bit more. So again, because we, as a basic aid, we do not receive state funding, right, specifically for, and when you look at the legislation, it really talks about the expansion of the program and that language that it uses contingent on state funding. Because we don't receive that state funding specifically, I get it. We, as a basic aid district, we do receive our own, local support and property taxes. But that specific, the mandate and the expansion of that program, because of the addition of the contingency on the funding, right? We would not be held, to that same expectation as other districts, because the penalty for it would be that they would lose the funding, right, if they weren't, enrolling the program. So again, that's kind of where, our guidance and advisement has been that wouldn't be that same expectation.
Yes, ma'am. And I guess specifically my question was geared towards who provided that interpretation. I know you said your team here did, but could you specifically provide some more clarification on how that interpretation was made, or who was providing that authority from a legal perspective?
Sure. Yeah, well, it is our, it's a variety of different resources. Schools First, which is an organization that really serves all of our districts in the state of California, is one. Capital Advisors, and then really our legal staff. It's Lozano and Smith is really who we turn to for any advice on any specifics. You want to add to that?
Kind of follow up that, but my understanding is the option one that was presented. Also, if that were an LCFF school, the UPK meets the requirements of the law anyway. So even with that, we're seeing some no's. Does the UPK meet the expansion of the basic of there was a proposed? Okay, it is not. It's not TK specifically. So thank you for that clarification.
I mean, we meet the intent of UPK rollout because we're offering additional, programs, right? But again, as I said earlier, because it's not a specific, we're not calling it TK, that it wouldn't necessarily meet that. Yeah. Okay. I know we had a question here as well, and then
not really a question. It's more of a perspective. First, of course, thank you for thank you for sharing this. And I am speaking as a staff member, and I do appreciate the open conversations that we've had with Mrs. Brownfield and as well as with you, Dr. Adamson. It's really appreciated. But I do want to give a little bit of perspective on history, because this is budget based. And a little bit of the history and the perspective of my perspective is when I joined this district. How are you? When I joined this district some 15 years ago, we had far less district office and as well as district staff. And we had more students at the time. And in my time being here, I've seen the district office staff expand and our enrollment drop. And now I'm feeling like now these cuts are being made to the TK program and to our essential programs that are here, and creating also the idea of combo classes are on the children now. And to me, that is just what feels really unfortunate. And it just doesn't fit well in my stomach for me to be able to stand up here and speak and just be completely transparent on my own personal observations from what I've seen. I've seen a huge amount of, but I haven't seen any cuts. We've been talking about all of the deficit spending, that we are in deficit spending, but I haven't seen any cuts or any idea or any sharing of cuts that are happening away from the children. I'm seeing it happening in front of, or with dealing with the children, not in front of. So I just wanted to share that perspective. Thank you.
appreciate that. I don't know if you're seeking a response from me. No, it's just, okay, got it. Thank you. Yeah. Appreciate it. Yeah. Appreciate that. Yeah. It's a common and observation. I know it came up a lot during our budget, presentations and questions, came to that, and I think we, addressed it, but well, really, if you're asking the question as, within, the last, year, have we had any cuts specific to the district office? I think what we did, and when we presented the reductions, back in February, we spoke to, really just some of the freezes. There were additional expansions that had been recommended by the school services study that they did of the district office was a year and a half ago, to really kind of identify, the needs and the efficiency of use. And actually, when we presented that, what they were recommending was additional staffing, from their perspective. And this is an outside organization who comes in and does this, for districts, was that we were incredibly lean and in fact, understaffed, in many of our departments. If you look at other districts, you normally have, for example, our Department of Student Services and Special Aid Services. Those are usually two different people. We have one person who is servicing our students, regardless of the number of students that you're, servicing. It's still the same accountability. It's the same, measures, the reporting pieces that we have. But really, that was their recommendation. And we, in part of those reductions, the plan had been to, really take those recommendations. We, made that decision to freeze, many, and in fact, draw back one or two of the expansions that we had recently done. So I think, in regards to that, we chose, not to, take on those recommendations. But yeah.
Did that study also?
It did. It did. Absolutely. Yep. It did. Yeah. Yeah. And it was an extensive study, right? That, we're happy to share again. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. So, go ahead. Yeah, please. Yeah.
I'm hopefully not getting anyone in trouble, because it is a good point, but it's not a quid pro quo trade. That's the thing that keeps being presented, that we're investing in district office at the cost of students. Things like legal fees are going up. Things like step and column and salaries and raises have been going up every year. And if you look at the numbers, we as a board, and I take this on as myself, have not done enough to stop that. And so we're in a position now where we need to do more than we normally would. And that stinks. And I wish this was not a decision we have to make, but it is one, given some of the decisions that we made in prior years, well before even some of us were on the board. And so I wish it were as simple as, if we cut this, we could do that. But because these costs are coming in very many different ways, and I really encourage, there's 2 board meetings where that was presented, and the budget will be presented again, particularly with regards to our choices this Thursday. I think it's pretty clear where these areas are going up in terms of costs that make it so difficult to deal with one of these issues, some of these issues as they arise. And I wish we weren't having this discussion. I wish it was something we could easily provide. I really do. And so I apologize for that aspect as a board member.
Thank you. I'll be the parent that speaks to that. But it is above my pay grade to know about the budget and to question it. But the parents are seeing that we're being told enrollment is going down and that property taxes are going up, and we keep being told about the base grade. So as parents, we're like, where is this going? And, same with, salaries of district employees. And it is something that the parents are thinking and we don't fully understand. Maybe this will be discussed further on Thursday. But then, yes, the parents are wondering that as well. But then I wrote a list of notes while you were speaking, and I just wanted to ask a couple clarifications. We keep being told that this is policy, that it's been around forever. But can you please enlighten us on how many times you've had to move children from schools ever since it's been policy?
I don't think I'm prepared to answer, the whole last few years, but I know this year, I think we had 5 students who were moved from one school to another.
Are they being allowed to go back?
That option has been offered to them, but they are choosing to stay where they are. They've been very clear with Principal Arbery on that. Yeah.
Sorry, I have a few questions. And then, with the understanding that there are 3 kindergarten classes at Robert Down right now and 2 at Forest Grove, and we are losing a kindergarten teacher to help accommodate the current kindergarten class that are moving up. And if it was only for 1 year, are there any students that are not in their district at certain schools that were moved around? Is that being explored? Because it feels like our incoming kindergarten class and TK class are getting really the repercussions of decisions that were also made last year. If that makes any sense.
I think I can answer that. Once a student gets placed at a school, so I think what you're talking about is possibly staff members who live outside the district who have students that are attending our schools. Once one of those staff member students gets placed at a school, then the student typically stays at that school. Another question that you asked was about the number of students that have to get transferred from one school or another. Dr. Adamson gave this year's number of 5, and having been in the district for, well, long time, right? That is a pretty consistent number. That it's not huge numbers of students that get moved from one school to the other in order to balance the class size. Typically, what happens is there's an imbalance. There'll be a high number of students at one school and a lower number at the other. And the placements from one school to another get made after the school year started, kind of as Dr. Adamson described, and that's the way they keep the classes that are full at the one school from going over the limit. So again, it is more in the neighborhood of a handful. It's not scores of children.
Okay. So many mics here. I have a kind of mics on mics on mics. Let's see, a couple of questions. This will be like a group response, but to clarify, I'm a Forest Grove parent. You and Dr. Clark McNary and Dr. Hazen are Robert Down parents.
No, my kids went through Forest Grove, both of them,
Oh.
TK to 5th.
Okay, I forget. Did one of your children go to TK for the first year?
I never had TK.
Okay.
TK was housed at Forest Grove only when my kids were in TK. So everybody they went to school with went to vote. I'm not on a mic, sorry.
No. That's good. This is a good point.
I'll just say, we
Let's do this
came,
together.
well, it's 2 trustees in a room. We have to be careful.
It's on Zoom.
We came to the district as a family looking for housing. And we were one of those families that lived in Marina and loved the Parents Place program. So we wanted to move to PG. And part of that journey, you start to hear, even if you don't know any different, that, oh, well, what zone is your kid in? Is your kid gonna be in Robert Down zone or Forest Grove zone? Like, I have a 3 and a 4-year-old. I don't know, but I want to pick what's right for my kids. So cost is also a factor. And we ended up in Forest Grove zone from TK, which was all housed at Forest Grove, all the kids. So my kids went to school with students who left in kinder and went to Robert Down, and now they're all hanging out again at the middle school. They all play on the same ball teams. They see each other around town. We're such a small town. And I think it's really lovely. But yeah, my kids went to Forest Grove for all of the years, and that's what I got. I don't know. Was there something I was supposed to stay away from or go to?
No.
Okay.
I'm a new board member, so these are truly questions I have, but now I'm passing it over to Buck. Buck, when did TK expand to both sides?
Oh, that's not my question.
I'm going to ask the Robert Down staff to help me a little bit. Was that 3 years ago? 2, yeah. And the expansion was originally a single class, and then this year expanded to 2.
Okay, cool. And then, sorry, come back. No, I need you. Like, just because I don't know if it was defined here, LCFF funding means,
local control formula funded.
so like,
District.
so the districts with LCFF get money per kid.
Correct, ADA, yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we get property taxes, and that's why the budgetary questions. Okay, great. Clarifying and wanting to make sure that that's known. So no confusion, because as a new trustee, so many acronyms and abbreviations. Yes.
We don't receive ADA funding for students, sorry. We don't receive ADA funding for students to attend every day. We still have an ADA amount, and our amount per student is $12,595 per student, where MPUSD is $6,961 per student.
So, yeah, so more than double is being spent on the children per student. Okay. I have horrible handwriting. No, Karen, I failed that in my school, apparently. I know, truly. I will say, coincidentally, I did visit the adult school with Miss Martinez, and I saw the UPK classroom that's currently housed at the David Avenue School. And I don't know why we didn't go there, actually. It's such an amazing program, and the ratio of adults to kids is insane. It's truly 2 to 1, I think, today. No. This is the state preschool. And I will say, as a trustee and a resident, it is very confusing, the different options. There has to be like a better chart, in my opinion. I'm not speaking for the board, but there's the preschool, the co-op, and the state preschool. And there are many options. And TK, yes, of course. But it was a beautiful scene to witness, as was the preschool at the adult campus. Really excellent programs, which is, I think, in reality, is the UPK model. When I see UPK, I don't know what it means, the universal blended or pre-K, but there are lots of different programs for these kids' ages. I really wish I could read my last bullet point. I'm sure it was really a good question. No, but I'll come back if I can decipher it. And thank you.
We do have,
We have someone online, so
Yeah.
yes,
they're identified as iPhone. I don't know if we want to go forward with that.
okay, all right,
Would
all
you-
right. So iPhone, yes, if you have a question, please go ahead and unmute yourself and ask it. We can all hear you.
You can
Yeah, I
unmute.
was just wondering if there's any way we could take down the screen because we can't see who's talking or who's in the room. If you could stop. There you go. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Oh, it looks like trustee Wax has remembered his question.
This was actually the first bullet point that I couldn't read. And I think this speaks to Mr. Binder. There was a comment about district spending going up in the district office, but it seems like in the past decade or so, there have been more state requirements for the district to report on, which has kind of put the onus and budgetary needs, I guess, apart from the sites and the schools. So that might be one reason why district staff has increased, is what I've been learning through this process, and which is not a quid pro quo like Dr. Hazen was saying. I have a nod from the man in charge.
That is correct.
Okay, that is correct.
That's
Okay.
part of the reason.
And then I will come back for this third point once I decide.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Vanessa. I'm a mom of an incoming kindergartner, but last year she was a summer baby, so I also understand the conflict in that. My big question when it comes to our, students with summer birthdays is I know we wanted to show what the how similar the programs are, TK and UPK. I'd actually love to also hear some differences, just so that we all understand. And also, why not open it up? Why not open up for all students who are eligible for TK and UPK? Why not make them all options? Like you were saying, Carmel, they're seeing a lot of people choosing to do some of the other options. So that way our youngest students aren't just sort of pushed aside based on the birthday, but then expected to be at the same level when they meet up with their cohort the next year. It just doesn't make sense. Just open it up to the whole group, and then families can decide because they know their kids the best. Thank you.
I love that. And that is definitely, that would be the approach, right? As we grow the program, if there, number one is space, number one, if we're rolling it out the way it's intended, the priority would then be to summer birthdays, but absolutely do. I know there will probably be families, who would prefer, as they learn more about, the makeup of the program itself, that would then, have them enroll in it. And ultimately that, frees up space, so that it will be the intent. Absolutely. Yeah. I love the idea. Yeah.
Thank you, sorry.
Sure.
Does that mean that it's possible that the students with the summer birthdays could choose TK if everything was opened up? It'd be the same number of students, the same resources.
So
Families could just choose where they go.
the additional challenge with that is that the moment we do incorporate and admit our summer birthdays to the TK class, then we have to uphold the ratios, which is a 1-to-10 ratio versus a 1-to-12, right? With our current, ages. So again, that's really where the decision comes in, right? With the funding piece of that, it really comes down to what our numbers are. I think we're open as we look and see what those families choose and what they select with it, that we'll know more right at that point. But at this point, that's not the plan. Yes.
I definitely understand that, but I think right now it's chosen based solely on birthday, and the very youngest, and I don't want to say that my daughter is less developmentally ahead as her cohort, but she's just one of the youngest. So this last year was the one who wasn't offered all of the programs. Why not make it based on when you enroll, when you register, and then once the classes are filled, our TK classes are filled, but these are your other options for UPK. Because you're eligible. It's the birthday thing that I think gets a lot of us. Like, we have the youngest ones and they're expected to be right at the same level as their cohort. We have the resources. It'll be the same number of students. Thank you so much.
We have another online.
I think it's very logical thinking, and we're going to take that into advisement. Yeah, I know that we have Angela Lippert online who's taking notes for us as well. So these are all going to be collected, and thank you. Yeah,
Caitlin.
Hi, I hope you all can hear me. This may have been discussed. I'm at home with my kids by myself, so you may have already gone over it, but I've been hearing a lot of talk about combination classes as sort of a creative solution to getting everyone in the door at their neighborhood schools. And I was wondering if you could speak about combination classes. And I'd also really like to hear what all of the teachers thought about the idea of having a combination first grade and kinder classes, combination TK and kinder classes. And then finally, how would the ratios work? Would you evenly split it with an even amount of kinder kids with an even amount of first graders? And can you offer that as a guarantee? Thanks.
great question. Thank you, Kate. Now I'm going to, I think, ask our Chief of Human Resources to initially answer the question, and then I'm looking over to, our team, but Erica Chavez, who's our VP of PGTA, to maybe talk to the teacher perspective, and anyone else who wants to add. But Chief Rogerman, go ahead.
Sure. There are a number of things that we have to consider when we go to open up a combination class. And it's one of the things that is covered in the collective bargaining agreement that we have with PGTA. One of the things is that whenever you bring two grade levels together, the reality of the situation is that it's a greater challenge than teaching a single grade level, that you need to address the learning standards in both grades with a single group of students. Because of that, the contract language calls for any combination class to be to be at least 4 students smaller than the average class size of the classes of the students that are being combined. So the one thing right off the bat is that the combination class would have to be smaller in order to try to address some of those additional challenges. I think that the teachers certainly are going to be able to speak in greater detail about just what exactly those challenges look like, especially for TK and kindergarten students and kindergarten and first grade students. But when you're looking at kindergarten students trying to get them ready for first grade and first grade students trying to get them ready for second grade, there's that span in what's being asked of the student that a teacher really has to tap into their differentiation skills to be able to address. And when you make that even younger with TK and kindergarten, there's the age development aspect of really teaching a student like how to do school, for lack of a better term. Just as a principal of Forest Grove for 7 years, it used to always feel like a miracle to me when I would see the kindergarten students that came in August and then look at the kindergarten students in the month of October and think in 2 months just what an incredible job our teachers had done in teaching them to be little students. And so when you have a blend of even a younger group of students, there's that part of the challenge, in addition to trying to balance the amount of play-based learning versus the amount of real curriculum-driven learning. And I know that sounds like, okay, well, they're 5, but that's the reality of what the state asks us to do now, is that we basically, by the time they're done with kindergarten, if they're not reading by first grade, they need to be very ready to read by first to first grade. And so that's what's being asked kind of from that TK to first grade span. And Ms. Chavez, I'm happy to hand it over to you.
All right. This has been discussed. It is a issue that we will be looking at very closely from a union perspective. And I don't think we're in a position at the moment to discuss numbers because I frankly don't know what the numbers are. So I can't speak to what those ratios would be because those numbers are very secret. So that's, or to me. Anybody else?
Well, and like, just to speak to that too. Right. So right now the pre-registration.
I'll just address that question. I mean, it is that we just literally had a conversation with Erica, this afternoon, and it came up during, my meeting with TK and K teachers at Robert Down. And I think absolutely our goal will be tomorrow to kind of connect with our principals to really put those numbers out there. I mean, it really has been up until now with pre-registration. We can't, nothing is definitive, right? Pre-registration is really just those families who are putting their names in and going and at least just showing their intent and interest. And we really only opened enrollment, at the beginning of last week. And so absolutely, I know that has been, a need, especially as teachers are now going in to develop their classes, and assign, students by class, that, we are committed to making sure that, yes, you have those numbers, right? So we will absolutely do that. Yep. Yeah.
Thank you. Just super about that a lot. I don't know if this was brought to your attention or not, but like myself and some of the other incoming parents were not included in the information. So I'm wondering how, like, I did not get alerted about this meeting. I did not get alerted about registration. And I've been very in all of this. So like we've corresponded, you have my email. So I'm wondering how many numbers are being missed that would help add to this equation. And like I pre-registered, so y'all have my contact information. So why am I being left out of this contact?
So you didn't get an invitation or the email that went out on Friday
No.
from me about this meeting? Oh, that's really
Yeah,
bad.
it was not
We have it's an all distribution list that we
There
have that really is.
multiple of us.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
not just
Okay.
myself.
Wow. Oh, you're in, okay. Got it. Okay. That's right. Okay. So okay. Yeah. 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 Okay. Well, I do believe, I think one of us, or maybe you sent it out to all of you, right? To the families that you have on the list, right? Yeah. 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 Right. Well, I mean, I think what we will absolutely make that a commitment. I appreciate you sharing that and making a point of that, right? That we can reach out, directly to those individual families who we know at least are pre-registered, right, for our summer birthday students. I think we have the names of all of them because we know, how many of them there are. So we will make a commitment to reaching out to each of them. Absolutely. And, we will personally do a one-on-one, meeting or a smaller group, meeting with them to address, and go through all of this information. So I appreciate you letting us know that. Yep. Yeah, that is a miss, right? Yep.
Okay. Would you rather do
I'm here because I'm nosy. I'm Darla Vining, and ultimately I'm here as a parent. I have a kindergartner. So basically what I want to say here is that I stand in solidarity of the teachers because I've had a very different, unique experience. I went through Pacific Grove schools. I met my husband when I was 5 years old at Forest Grove Elementary. And I had to actually raise my brother, who was several years younger than I was. And in 1990, so I went through Forest Grove, kindergarten through fifth grade. And in 1990, they had all of the kindergartners and first graders all up at David Avenue before it was Monterey Charter School. So that was interesting for my grandmother because I was in fifth, he was in kindergarten, and it made for an interesting, car ride, etc. And when my son was ready to go through school and he was up with Aaron at David Avenue, I had never been to David Avenue, but my brother was. I'm like, oh, okay, I don't feel that connection. But I ended up feeling the connection because my son had to go to David Avenue and he had to have Aaron as a teacher. Because it just happened that way. It just happened that way. And that was what was going on in that era. But that's what happened last year. So now my son is at Robert Down because my husband, we live in the house that he grew up in, but that was in a Forest Grove zone back in 1982. And now it's in a Robert Down zone. So ultimately, I'm here to say, to be honest with you, yeah, I do stand in solidarity with the parents. I understand that. I wanted to send my kid to Forest Grove. Well, guess what? They're remodeling over the summer and he's forced to take his extended school year, thanks Yolanda, at Forest Grove. But we're going to go back to Robert Down in the fall. But, the thing is with Pacific Grove, all of these schools are in the same school district. We share teachers, we share properties. That's really what it comes down to. So even though my son goes to Robert Down, I met a lot of these teachers in here know who my son is. And he's only 6. So, that's just, getting the name out there. Thor, no. But so ultimately what I just want to wrap up and say that it's going to be unique every single year because I thought at some point that the preschool program, my son back in 2022, I was told by Josh Jordan at the time that they were all going to be at Lighthouse. And I was like, well, that's great. We're on Cedar. That's, we can walk there. But no, we're driving all the way up to David Avenue. And I had to accept it for what it is. And I'm really kind of nervous about Thor going to Forest Grove because, oh, great. Okay, you'll be there. I'm still nervous. So we're always going to have a very different idea. And then also the idea, a couple years ago, it was floated that all of the kids' grades K through 2 was going to be at Robert Down and all of the kids 3 through 5 are going to be at Forest Grove. And then a sister would have to be in 4th grade. They'd have to do all of these things. And I don't know why that didn't work out, but I'm glad it didn't. It's one of those things where we have a lot of properties in Pacific Grove. It's going to change from time to time. My grandfather's principal was Robert Down, so I have to like Robert Down. But I'm Forest Grove Falcon all the way. Okay, that's all I have to say.
Thanks for that sort of historical, journey for us as well, Tara. That was really great. Thank you. Yeah. And I think you brought up the redistribution, the R word, which, many will refer to it. Reconfiguration, sorry. Yes, that was, considered about that. Yeah. Well said. Thank you. Yeah. I think we have someone online.
She lowered her hand.
Oh, no. Okay.
Yep, she's back.
Do we have her back online and then we'll move back to Ali? Okay.
I think we have someone online.
Go ahead, Ms. Sopa.
Oh, Chief Rogan, we're going to take someone online first and then we'll go to Ellie. Yeah.
Hi, this is Carrie Serpa, parent and teacher from the other elementary school in Pacific Grove. And I understand that we are in a time of budgetary crisis and some things are going to change and some programs may need to receive less funding. But I would like to remind everyone that it is a time when we should come together to support students at all schools. We here at the other elementary school happen to love our little school in the forest. We believe students are more than a test score, but if you're concerned about your particular subgroup, you can see how that demographic is doing by checking the California dashboard site rather than great schools. But we believe that progress matters more than perfection. We tell our kids that every day. And yes, we have a diverse campus, and we are very proud of that. Right now, in my opinion, we should be coming together as a community to help all students. We should be problem solving, how to keep cuts away from classrooms, and that might include shuffling kids 1.1 miles away. If that reduces the number of students in a classroom or prevents a combo class, then I personally am all for it, because ultimately that is better for kids, and isn't that why we're all here? Neighborhoods change after all, and boundary lines may too. If we want to keep the amazing programs that we offer to our students, we need to be willing to send our kids to either elementary school. They are both excellent places with extraordinary staff. Both of my kids thrived at Forest Grove. Enzo's a sophomore at University of Hawaii and majoring in psych, and Aurelia's a junior at PG High and in the top 10% of her class. More importantly, they're both good humans. We do a good job here at Forest Grove. I promise you. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Ms. Sopa. Wow, very, very well stated.
I was just going to say, and I think I speak for the group of parents that are fighting to stay in their neighborhood schools. I can see Robert Down from my house. I want to walk my child to school. I know Forest Grove is lovely, but it's a safety issue for me. It's a convenience issue for me. We're a one-car family, and I know that that's not specific to me. That's specific to a lot of the parents that are, fighting for other options to be explored. So we mean no disrespect to Forest Grove whatsoever. We have Forest Grove parents that are standing with us in solidarity for these issues. So I just did want to speak to that and clarify that it's not about which school is better at all. It's just what is right for our family and what we know is best for our child in terms of logistics.
Thank you. We have one more online and then we'll go to the back. Yeah.
B post.
All right. I just wanted to, Dr. Hazen, I think that you sort of called the elephant out in the room, and I really appreciate that, this is really 4 years in the making of overspending, sort of unprecedented raises, travel and conference overspending on books and materials, overspending on legal and consulting fees. And now we're sitting here, as parents having to make these tough choices. And I realize we're all in this together, but this is really not a great outcome, for anyone in the room or anyone online. So my question is, another thing that was said that I just want to clarify is that this new approach that you're offering aligns with the vision of UTK, which I respectfully, disagree. That very much states facts, max class sizes, max number of teachers to instructional aides. Those things are all really important. Also, it's taught by a credentialed teacher. So my question is, you also said that the UPK program would be taught by a highly qualified teacher. Can you clarify whether that person is credentialed or not?
So the teachers that we have that will be teaching the program, they have their early childhood education units, and then one holds their permit, their site permit license. One of our teachers is actually enrolled in it's not a requirement for the program, for the UPK program, it is actually enrolled in the P3 credential program, which would entitle her when she receives that to teach any grades from preschool through third grade. And I know that one other teacher has expressed interest in signing up for the credential program, but for the UPK program, it's not a credential, a certified elementary credential, single subject, so multi-subject credential is not required. But they have their early childhood educational units, which is required for teaching 3 and 4-year-olds.
Hi, thank you. I'm Jess Morris, and I do want to say that, well, I am a parent, first and foremost, of a TK student at Robert Down, and I'm also happily a substitute, and I get to substitute both in the TK classrooms sometimes, although I find them quite challenging, as well as the preschool, which I somehow find less challenging. So I do just want to speak to the fact that those are extremely different worlds. I am so impressed by both of them. The thought of blending them in an umbrella confuses me. To say that I feel very heard as well, Dr. Adamson, specifically with your blend, with the model that you presented. I feel like you heard so many of those requests to bring in the curriculum, the extracurricular activities that are available on site. That's wonderful. Providing this free option for those families who really need that at this time and who've been expecting that is awesome. Obviously we have great programs, and extending it to the community is such a great idea. And I do want to second the idea that we open that up to everybody as a choice. I think that's, I would love to have that explored further, as you've said that you might consider. Yeah, I do think that the teachers, from what I can tell, also might consider it a little confusing to think about having 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds in a UPK curriculum, or I mean, it's not being offered as that. So it's still one thing I didn't mention in my speech last time was, hey, they're in the room with 3-year-olds. Like, I didn't mention that because I thought it was kind of obvious and saying the language developmentally appropriate. My kid was just ready to not be in a room with 3-year-olds. I'm sorry, but I think that that's a really important challenge to recognize. And I love the program that you're providing, the option. I think that growing that early childhood center is going to be so cool. I hope that can go forward. And I still stand by the fact that we need universal pre-kindergarten, not, a different option that's in the future, at least. I understand that we have budget cuts, and maybe this is the point where we have to fall on our swords here a little bit, and that's the choice that we get for this year. But I do hope that we'll be working towards the following year, having, the teachers credentialed to the right levels and having the curriculum be able to serve that specific age range of the 4-year-olds turning 5. A couple of questions were, and yeah, again, I also want to ditto sorry, Rogman, are you a doctor? Mr. Rogman, I'll level you up. Mr. Rogman, you have doctorate experience at least. Yeah, he did mention that, those students who are entering TK are learning school. So it's just such a big jump and it's the most important first school year. I mean, any first school year is the most important. So any complication we're giving to it is just so unfair and unjust. Definitely not a fan of the blended classrooms, just because of those challenges that are to those early children. I was confused by the idea of what is the true intent of UPK that you brought up. So if you do want to speak to something after hearing me, maybe speaking to that, like you said blended learning model is the true intent of UPK, and it just doesn't sit right with me. Yeah. So I love the way that you're thinking. I love that you're addressing the questions that we brought up before. Also, something that continues to bother me is this idea that we can't afford to expand, but we're shrinking, aren't we? We fired people. So I don't feel like we're not expanding. I feel a bit manipulated in terms of that language. Maybe you can address that as well. Maybe I'm completely wrong, but when I hear we can't afford to expand, I think about the teachers who were fired and I say, how is that not expanding? That's all I have to say. I'm sorry, that was so long.
there were a couple things in there. I think I'll speak to the first piece where you talk about sort of the blended classroom and teaching multiple ages. I think currently in our preschool program we're serving the 3 and 4 year olds, right? So it is already, the whole intent of the curriculum that they teach, right, there's a 3-year-old component, a 4-year-old component, sort of a pre-kindergarten, piece to it. So I think, that any teacher who teaches preschool, they receive and they study early childhood education specifically for that reason. So, I mean, with our, really adapting and bringing on our, summer birthday students, it's really, no different to, really what they are working with and the students that they service, currently, in that program, which they do, I have to say, masterfully. And, I think that would be another option for us to really be able to offer, any parents who's interested in seeing the program in action, for us to be able to, for you to see it yourself, because they're incredible with it. So I think that's the first piece. The other, oh goodness, now you said a couple of things that I wanted to address. You had asked about the UPK, the intent, of that rollout. It truly is intended to give choice and variety, right? And a variety of different models, learning models. When you look at that umbrella, you see, all of the various, programs that are called out. So it is about, sort of mixed options, right, that we're being able to offer to our families to meet various needs. I'm going to ask just Principal, Martinez to maybe speak a little bit more. Do you have anything to add to that, Al, that would maybe help? Yeah, go ahead.
I think the whole intent, and Jessica, I think I can help you understand. The whole intent of universal pre-K or TK model was to offer parents a choice. Years back, preschool was all fee-based, right? We're lucky enough to have preschool co-ops, very popular, stemming back to Parents' Place. I have 7 preschools, very successful preschools, stemming from the full day childcare, 8 hours a day, 18 months to 3-year-olds in a classroom, in an academic setting, if you will. In the AM, we are play-based, but we do have curriculum, and it's all based on the foundations. So at any time, any of our teachers, and maybe several of you have taught it, been in our classrooms before. It is a parent education program. However, it's student-centered and academic in the morning so that we do follow the foundations. The whole point of offering this universal umbrella is to give parents a choice. So you can choose to stay in a co-op model and stay engaged with your child 5 days a week, 3 days a week, 2 days a week, half day, 3 hours a day. You can choose to stay in a full-time 8-hour-a-day childcare facility that is preschool based, meaning that we have a full curriculum that's foundations based with qualified staff, right? That our children are, by the time they reach grade or age 5, are kinder ready. That's our goal, to get them kinder ready. So you can choose the full day childcare. You can choose private school. You can choose faith-based schools. You can choose state preschool. You can choose the disabilities preschool. You can choose an inclusion model. That's the whole point of universal TK, right? It's to offer a choice. Now, the reason why we're bringing the 3s and the 4s into public schools, K-12, is to offer that free option. Now, it's a grade level. When we brought TK in, it offers a new grade level. Now we're bringing 3s in, it's a new grade level. So we are trying to be fiscally responsible by bringing in the same teachers that were teaching the state preschool and the students with disabilities into an option that will include age 3 into a classroom with typical peers. So we're not really marginalizing 2 populations and calling that inclusion. We're calling that universal, right? We're offering an opportunity for parents and children to play in a classroom with typical peers and develop. And if I have to say one last thing, that all of our grades, whether they be an 18-month classroom to a 3-year-old classroom to a 4 or a 5, each one is curriculum-based and developmental, right? So we have a 3s curriculum, we have a 4s curriculum, we have an 18-month curriculum, and we have augmented curriculum for students who have special needs. Does that make sense?
For not everyone being given the choice. Yeah, and I think that's the critical piece without summer birthdays. Yeah. I know that, oh, we have something online and I saw a hand here as well and at the back. So let's go online. I'd like to find out.
Casey.
Hi, I'm Mackenzie Golahar. I'm the daughter of Casey Aliotti. And I just wanted to say that at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter which school you go to. It doesn't matter if your kid is wearing like a red or a green sweatshirt on the first day of school. At the end of the day, we'll all be classmates and forever friends. We are PG, and we are a culture of we. We are a small community and blessed to live where we live. This unnecessary divide isn't fair to the future kids of PG. I'm a proud product of Forest Grove. I'm a thriving junior class president and a volleyball player. I am PG and proud of my education. Thank you.
Wow, thank you. You've got people giving you an applause right here in the room. Well said. Thank you for that. I think we had one more coming out and then we'll go to online. Yep, go ahead. Yep.
Thank you. Hi, this is Vanessa again, the mother of an incoming kindergartner. And I just want to really stress what Allie said earlier. Like we're all talking with each other. I haven't heard a single person say it's because they don't want to go to Forest Grove. It's because they really want to just go to the school that their neighbors are going to and that the kid across the street is going to. We used to live in the Forest Grove zone, 100% happy if we were still living there to go. Like I was thrilled. We moved. So I just want to go to, our zoned school. But I just really, really want to stress, like truly, I keep hearing about a divide. There are lots of slides about a divide, multiple speakers about a divide. We are not talking about a divide. We just want, our kids to go to school walk to school and go with our neighbors. That's all.
Thank you for clearing that. I'm going to go, we'll do trustee wax. We have one online and then one here and we'll maybe end there or maybe one more there as we're getting close to our end time. Yep. Trustee wax.
I'll try and go real quick. Just to reiterate, I get wanting to go to the neighborhood school, but this is a recent development because TK at both schools was 3 years ago is when it came online. For kindergarten, yeah, for TK. For kindergarten, I get this is more to you. I know you haven't released the numbers yet, but with all the pre-registered parents, and I don't know if this is legal, I'm speaking as a citizen. I don't know if you could like give some sort of like tracker of where things are tracking or headed toward, because in the end, no, we can't. Okay, that's great. But again, this might all be preemptive because maybe things are tracking just like how they are in previous years. So I just want to keep people aware of that. Also, quick shout out, Aurelia Sorpa was great in the musical. I missed the last meeting. She was great. The combined classes, I much like you said, I see lots of challenges as a teacher for sure. I will also say that is kind of the theory of Montessori. My daughter did Montessori early education in Texas with, what's that? Oh, I know, but the blending of ages or combining of ages, even without instruction, I don't want to speak out of turn, but I don't think that limits the advancement of your kid. My kid is last year she was in 4th grade and she tested on a lexile of a 12th grader. So I don't think it constrains anyone's education by perhaps blending. And then also, this is not in regard to this meeting, but really for us as trustees, no, for us as citizens, because I'm not speaking as a trustee, but the world is always changing, especially with AI, especially with all these changes. Like everything is going to change. So we, as a district, we have to be nimble. As a parent, we have to be nimble. As a future worker and citizen in the world, we have to be nimble because everything is always changing. And the most important thing to teach to at least my children, I hope, is that you have to have a curiosity for learning, a passion, and an excitement. And I think that is true with all the sites I've seen, from today at the David Avenue School to the adult ed school to Forest Grove and to Robert Down, where I saw the science fair and was very impressed with all the things that flew all around. And that's all. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Rex. I think we'll do online and then we'll come here and end over here, right? Those are the last three ones. And then we'll stay afterwards. Anyone who wants to, talk more. So yes, online.
The post.
Yeah, thank you. So Dr. Adamson, and the April meeting that we held with the incoming classes, there were three options that were presented to the parents. One was to maintain the current cutoff date. The second was to follow the UPK guidelines. And then the third was to extend the cutoff date, but maintain the current class size maximums. And now we're talking about combo classes. We're talking about filling, everything to capacity and laying off teachers. So I'm curious on what has changed from April to now to really be presenting what feels like the worst case scenario.
Great question. Nothing has really changed. I think, we presented those three options as ready to I think show our community, show our board of, what the additional, fiscal, impact would be, right? If we were to go ahead and, just abide by what the legislation talks about in maintaining the 1-to-10 ratios, and then, admit and enroll our summer birthdays. So nothing has changed. I think, you made mention of the fact that we're looking at combo classes. Really the combo classes are something that we would be looking at even, without the summer birthdays. And that really is as a result of if we have, sort of a higher enrollment at one school, to prevent, our need to have to move them, to a school other than their neighborhood school. So really those three options. I mean, the other two that really had significant, costs associated with them. What has changed is we are coming forward with a creative program that really would be able to meet the needs of our summer birthday students, which, we did not have available, when we presented that back in April. So I think that answers the question. Yeah. I think we've got one over here and we'll end there.
My name is Aggie. I have an incoming kindergartner. Well, first of all, I do not envy y'all's jobs. I've learned a lot coming to these different board meetings that I never thought I would be attending as a kindergarten parent. And I did not expect to speak. So sorry if I'm all over the place, but I'm just happy to be in Pacific Grove. We just moved. I'm from Ohio. We just moved here 3 years ago, and we lived here in PG. We moved, military housing for a second, and then we're back because I was I just want to go back. I want to be in PG. I don't care if I'm at Forest Grove. I don't care if I'm at Robert Down. I'm just happy to be in PG schools and for my daughter to start kindergarten and walk in the butterfly parade. That is the main thing I'm excited about. So yeah, so all that to say, I thought going to the TK kindergarten meeting, I would be learning about attendance and school safety procedures and what they have for lunch and getting a glimpse of what the teacher's day looked like and a little intro of all of them and something. And then it was you might not go to the school that you're 4 blocks from. And I was oh, whoa, this is new information, I don't mind walking an extra mile. That's fine. I can see Robert Down if I go up to Pine. So I just naively assumed oh, I guess I'll go there because that's where the rental that we, got approved for is located. So yeah, I have been coming to the meetings just to learn because things have seemed unclear and I'm not trying to be a crazy parent, but it's I feel I have to come to listen and hear more details and try to come up with the context. And then you got the talk on the playground and you're oh my gosh, what is going on? And then I don't get an email and I'm is this on purpose? I don't know. And I'm just new to the school. I'm at the co-op, but it's that it doesn't seem I'm not on the main email list or whatever. But yeah, so I guess I don't know what my point is other than saying I'm happy to be here. I don't think that a lot of these parents are trying to necessarily divide. I know that's stuff that has happened in the past, whatever, but I think I also don't know if my daughter is official. Like I applied on May 5th because at that meeting I put it in my calendar. Like this is the date I have to register. And then yeah, didn't hear about it, which I know that stuff falls through the cracks sometimes, but maybe just something to be mindful of. And yeah, and then it said like approved, your daughter like May Welty has been accepted to Robert Down. And I'm like, is this real? Like, I don't know. Is she when am I gonna know? I don't mean to sound silly. It's like the only way I know how to talk. It's like, I don't know if that's true. Like, I think at that first meeting, they said like, oh, you'll know 2 weeks before. And I'm like, that seems late, So it's just, I would just love to know when things are officially official, I guess. The end.
You gave us really good perspective. No, that was a lot. I think I'll go back to where you started saying you just wanted to be here in PG, and I could not, I totally agree with that as well. But I think you gave us some really good input and feedback on that. I think, just even going back to the TKK parent information evening, that was, we kind of had a conversation with some of our teachers about that as well. That, I think that we take that input for making adjustments for next time, and I think I will own that piece of it. My intention was to try to be as transparent as possible with families about that this is a possibility, but I maybe regret that as well, just kind of hearing that and hearing from others who maybe that wasn't the time, right? So we learn through that, and we will, you're right. I think as a parent coming in, what are you wanting to know? You want to know about the schedule and meet the teachers. And so we'll definitely take that feedback and make those adjustments, for the future. But just as far as the last piece, I mean, you just talked about the registration. When will it be final? I mean, it really is, like I said, with our only, opening registration last week, we kind of will continue to monitor and look at those numbers. And there could be shifting, that happens as, more enrollment comes in. And so, that's why we say that, yes, you've registered, but we may have to make some adjustments come June, and the only reason for that being is that because if new families come in and that adjusts and that changes the numbers, the decisions go from there. But for now, you're in a good place. You've registered. You're on. You've got your official congratulations. You've been accepted. But we definitely try as soon as we can to give those final placements, and then from the school itself, placements in which class as well. So I just appreciate the information, the feedback. Thank you. And I think we had one more. Okay, we'll do one more online and then end over here at the back. Yep. Okay.
Anthony, go ahead and state your last name too.
Venezia, this is Anthony Venezia. I've got a daughter who just finished kindergarten, and I've got an incoming daughter coming into kindergarten. And I've been following this, for lack of a better term, drama quite closely, to try to figure out what's going to go on. And to echo what everybody has said, I do not envy your job. I'm so sorry that you have to deal with this. I've worked for the government for 15 years, and I know budgeting is the most annoying thing ever. And I also know that bureaucracy definitely is an issue. I'm sorry, the screen was up, so I don't remember who mentioned it, but one of the people who was speaking earlier spoke about um, the district office and extra requirements that are placed on it, reporting requirements. And I, it sounded like, and I'm sure this wasn't what it was intended, but perception is important, and I think that's kind of what this entire meeting is about. The perception is that those reporting requirements require more manpower, therefore the manpower is being devoted that way, and we're talking about the different opportunities that we have to save money as one of the teachers mentioned, to the expense of the children. And I just wonder, I know in my government position, if it's accomplish the mission or report, I'm going to accomplish the mission and just not report, because that's far less important. I don't know what all of the details on any of this is, and I think it would be really beneficial. I watched this school board meeting on budget that you guys had a week or two ago, and like the trustee gentleman said, a lot of acronyms didn't make a whole lot of sense. It would be awesome if there was some way for us to understand this whole budget problem a whole lot better. Is there a spreadsheet somewhere we can look at, or a worksheet? I'm sure it's posted somewhere and I just haven't found it. But if we could see that and understand that a little bit better, and this whole divide thing is silly. My wife grew up here in PG, and there's a feeling of haves and have-nots between Robert Down and Forest Grove, and I think it's just the silliest thing ever. I just want to be able to walk my kids to school as well. I don't really care which one's which. So if you could just help us understand that a little bit better with the budget and um, the bureaucracy thing, like if we can stop other things, if we can save the money elsewhere and focus on the kids, I think that would make everybody a whole lot happier.
And so thank you. This is Elliot Hazen. I just wanted to comment on that part again, because this view that it's one or the other. I mean, one decision we made was to keep 3 mental health therapists. And I wish you guys could have heard some of the stories we've been told, some of the kids that spoke at our board meeting about how critical that has been for them to be able to make it through school. That shouldn't be our job. That should be the job of the community. There should be enough resources here in the community to provide that. If they can't, we had to make that decision. So I understand again that it feels, but we're not sitting here padding the checks of bureaucracy at the expense of the students. I've tried to say that as a board member, and I know it's not coming across fully, but we are here for the kids. All of us on the board are here for the kids first, even if it doesn't feel that way to you guys. But we have to make decisions between mental health and sometimes decisions like UPK versus TK. And those things don't always align. We had to make some of those decisions earlier that left us in a position to see with the enrollment numbers that this was going to be an issue after we made this decision. So I'll just say, on the bureaucratic front, I've been on the board now for 2 years. I still feel like every day I'm learning, especially with the budget as clear as Josh presents it. Fund 14 and 40 versus Fund 23 versus this fund that has $600 every year, and we never can do anything with it. Like, these are not things that make sense, but they are the bureaucracies that are put on us by the state that I think we do a great job dealing with. So I just want to say on that aspect too is, yes, we do have to deal with more of that, but we are, whether it's the district office being lean, whether it's the school sites in some ways being lean, because we don't always. I mean, I remember when I was on school site at Robert Down and we wanted to put in shade structures, and that was not something we were able to actually do for many, many, many years, right? I know we still don't have them, but there's plans in the works, I will say, because we've been pushing this. But to make that case that it's like, I know right now you guys are dealing with this at the youngest ages, but just please recognize that, again, as a board and as a district, we're trying to meet all the needs. And I know that doesn't feel sufficient when your kids are about to start school, but everything that people have said, Forest Grove and Robert Down are beyond amazing options. And even if it is 1 year or whatever, like, being able to meet each other across the schools is only going to be a good thing, whether that's reconfiguration that I hope we don't have to discuss, or whether it's, some either late enrollers or whatever that switch sites. And I encourage you to talk to parents in other districts. Monterey, their kids go to different elementary schools, not based on where they live, but based on availability. And it often works out in positive ways. So I just encourage you to look outside a bit and just understand a bit more about that side of the process. And please do understand, again, when it gets painted, even if it's not intentional, when it gets painted as an us versus them, whether it's Forest Grove versus Robert Down, this is a divisive language that it's part of our society as a whole right now. And so that's why I just would try to say again, to coming together, understand you guys wanting to walk your kids to school. My kids walk themselves to school now, one to the high school, one will be to the middle school. But this is exactly an important thing, but just please recognize this isn't an us versus them. This isn't a one side versus other. We are PG, and we have to remember that first and foremost. That if you're targeting another staff member, you're targeting another part of the district, you're doing harm to the district rather than a good. So I just want to say that again. Sorry about that. But there's a history, and it's not your fault. Sorry. The problem is there's a history well before you guys. That's what I'm trying to say is there's no intent. I don't think that anyone's saying Robert Down is better, but what it does is it's the impact, and these are things we've heard. Again, in my 2 years on the board, we've heard so many times over and over again, and it's many that, like, if I could have sent my kids, it's not a fault of Robert Down, to Forest Grove for 4th and 5th grades or before, I would have done it in a heartbeat, because I know, being on the board, how amazing a school that is. I understand the walking part, but you have to understand this is a whole picture. If we could do everything we could for every single situation, we would, but it's not the way we try our best, and we will try our best, but it's not the way we can do it every time. So. Sorry.
I think we're going to go with one last comment and then I think we're going to wrap it up.
Is it on?
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So I'm a Forest Grove parent. I have a third grader and an incoming kinder. And I do stand in solidarity with you guys. That's why I'm here. I wanted to speak to what this teacher said. What's your name? Okay, thank you. Because I think what she said at the beginning of the meeting was so important. As much as the district and the board members, I think when it comes to the budget, say like you're doing the best that you can, what the reality is it is hurting the children by getting rid of teachers, by getting rid of mental health therapists. Like it really is what is affecting the students. And as parents, our students and our children are always going to come first, right? So no matter what, I think all of the explanations about budget and all of these things, so I just want to say I'm really eager. I'm going to join the budget meeting on Thursday. Can't wait to hear all about it, get some more in-depth reasoning about why it seemed like all of a sudden we're here, right? It's just like this year, all of a sudden it seemed like we talk about spending in the government, misspending in the government, and you don't ever think it's going to happen to you. And then it's like all of a sudden this year, okay, we have to fire teachers and mental health therapists. Like that's really where we're going to cut our budget first. I think that was the most painful thing, just coming from a Forest Grove parent. But secondly, I just wanted to ask, so you spoke about this UPK program or this 3 and 4-year-olds going to Forest Grove. I'm just curious logistically what that's going to look like. Like, where are those classrooms going to be held? How much interaction are 3 and 4-year-olds going to have with 5 and 6-year-olds? Because we have that little playground area. I'm guessing that's where they're going to be. Like, what services at the school are going to be shared? Is the school ready for that? I know because my daughter had already been through kindergarten, a lot of the kindergarten and TK teachers were saying like, oh, they're not even ready to like open their lunch boxes themselves. They're not ready to do all of these things that elementary age students are ready to do. So by mixing, 3 just sounds really young to me to have at an elementary school, but I'm just curious how that will look logistically.
Yeah, well, great question. I think, really, number one, we have the facilities in place at Forest Grove, right? We have, several empty classrooms. Not several, I mean, we have for sure one that we've identified that really has a self-contained restroom in it, that really has the space that's needed for. There are licensing requirements for 3 and 4-year-olds that we would have to, abide by, that we're fully aware of. And, really, when we look at that facility, when you ask, is Forest Grove ready for it? We absolutely are. Even in looking at what the playground structure is, we actually already have a new playground structure coming in that is going to be implemented. That's not the right word, but it'll be ready. It's ready for June, and that had already been ordered before this. But to your point, no, I mean they will have their own sort of playtime schedule. There may be some interaction with some of the TK students, absolutely, and even kinder. But the way it is structured right now at Forest Grove, they have TK and K, as you probably know, right, their own little separate area, and that's where the master scheduling abilities of an elementary principal comes in to really kind of look at what the master schedule is and kind of determine when they would be having their lunch and their playground time, and so all of that would be taken into consideration. It's it's what schools do. I was a former principal where we had multiple preschool programs, and it's really just about you identify the areas and it works beautifully. It really does. So that's, the first one. I just want to clarify, you made the comment about our, firing mental health therapists. I think the whole point that that President Hazen was trying to make was the fact that we, hired mental health therapists, 3 years ago using one-time funding that we received from, for want of a better word, COVID funding. Every school district did. And really we used those to hire, 3 incredible mental health therapists. But that funding was one time. It came to an end last year. And so we had some difficult decisions to have to make if we either do away with those mental health or we had to absorb that significant cost, right, significant into our general, our general fund. We made the choice that was one of the options to do away, with some of those services this year. It was very clear when we presented that, to our community, and that was not, a viable option at the time. And so we still have our mental health therapist, but at what, when you talk about at what cost, there's got to be give and take, right? So if we keep saying yes to
I think none of us in this room are going to sit and say anything we present to you, there's a need for that and our students would thrive, from them. We want to be able to give as much as we can. But if we keep saying yes, 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 it's to the detriment of our entire overall program. And we are going to be in a situation where, we can't really keep the quality of the programs that we're offering. And really, I think just the last piece that was, has been, mentioned several times is really the reduction of staff and the laying off of certain teachers. I mean, that really was as a result of looking at what our enrollment is and seeing reduced numbers at just those grade levels. And those decisions were made there because, in making those reductions, the numbers at each of the grades still meet our, class size goals, which, as I said earlier, remain, really relatively small when compared to other districts as well. So just wanted to clarify those pieces. I just want to say thank you, to all of you. I feel, I hope that you're walking away from tonight being, number one, heard. We had some really good, valuable, I think, conversations, rich conversations as well, which was the intent of tonight. All I'm going to say to all of you is we want to obviously continue, those ongoing conversations. Yes, the budget will be presented Thursday night. So if you are wanting to come and learn, I do want to remind everyone too, we did, and really when I talk about, I hear it when it comes to budget, people, myself included, right? You want to put it in terms of, that anyone can understand. I use a term in teaching that you explain it to me like I'm a kindergarten student, right? So really, Chief Rogerman and I really led that budget meeting on February 27th, and that was the intent. And we had a lot of our community there, but the intent of that was to really lay it out in really simple terms and kind of, lay out the reason for why we're here today. It is not a sudden, just this year, what's happened with the money, right? It has been building multiple years. President Hazen, referred to that at the beginning. It really is to the point it's now we actually have to do something, right? And it has been, I will say, it would be easier for us to just say, you know what, we've got these numbers, let's just go ahead and hire another teacher, right? Because we want to be able to accommodate and open another class and say yes to all of these incredible programs. But there's only so long that we can continue to say yes. And it is going to catch up with us. It has been catching up with us when you look at the multiple years and see our reserve really declining year after year. Right, we cannot, we have a statutory obligation. We have to maintain a minimum of a 3% reserve that is not recommended for basic aid districts. For basic aid districts, it should be anywhere between above 15% at the absolute minimum. When you look at Carmel, they have that higher reserve, right? When we present on Thursday night, you will see that reserve continues to dip very dangerously close to where we don't want to be, where we will have to face the option of losing that autonomy and control, of our funding, and being able to make our own, decisions as a local district. So just, I think that's important for everyone to carry with them, but please, you just know that your feedback on understanding the budget is helpful. We continue to apply that to how we continue to message things. Just even the fact that there were some of you in the room tonight that said you didn't even get the message and the email for tonight's meeting, right? Because you're not on that distribution list, because you're not enrolled in the district yet for this current school year. So again, those are the things that, we continue to receive and get better at, right? So appreciate everyone's input tonight, appreciate everyone's questions. And, there were some hard ones, and even just pointing out, the very, difficult things. This is what this is about. We're not wanting to hide from any of these conversations. We want to be transparent. We want to keep those conversations open. And every question is an important one. So just thank you. Thank you for being here, and let's keep the conversations going. Okay. Thank you to everyone who is online as well. We so appreciate you. Have a lovely evening, and we'll maybe see you with many of you Thursday night. We'll remain behind if you have additional questions for anyone, who wants to stay on. Hopefully you can all get home now for dinner, right? It's late, and to your little ones at home. Good night, everyone. Thank you.